Hi everyone, I'm Saleha and this is Friday Night Adda. Um, Tonight's episode is a bit different to what I normally do, but we are talking a very important subject which all of us go through, but somehow we just don't talk about it. So, joining me to talk about mental health is Saibal Guha. And for a change, he's from Australia, so I don't have to worry about time difference. And hello, Saibal.
Hey, how are you, Shula? It's
Good.
good to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. So, Ektu, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I am originally from Kolkata. Not Kolkata exactly. I'm born and brought up in Durgapur, which is, if some people know, it's about 100 kilometers from Kolkata. That's a
Yeah.
industrial town, beautiful township. That's where I did my schooling, and then my father retired, and parents came to Kolkata. Then we became a part of Kolkata, and then that's where the journey started. So I did my medical degree from Kolkata, then joined the armed forces. I was in Indian Navy for 15 years, and then subsequently came to Australia in 2004. I was a psychiatrist in Navy, so that continued in Australia. Did my all these fellowships that you have to do to work here. So I've been
Yeah,
working in Brisbane as a in private psychiatry. That's my background.
which is fantastic. And Durgapur Asansol connection. So, that's a great connection.
A
So,
lot of friends in Asansol. A lot of friends,
um, Shoibal, we are going to talk mental health, as you know.
of course.
So, different types of mental health. We all go through this mon kharap korche. So, what is the difference between mon kharap and mental health that is more serious and more severe?
That's true. In fact, when I used to practice in Kolkata for a brief period of time after leaving defense and in the transitioning to come to Australia, more corrupt is something that people talk about in a bit of a transactional tone. But basically, people generally don't go to psychiatrists for just normal mon kharap.
Ah,
Mon kharap is dealt with by the family and people in the neighborhood, or watching a bit of a some kind of a Tollywood or Bollywood serial. So that takes care of general monkrab. Monkrab is not necessarily depression. I don't believe people's mood is the only component depression actually does. And depression and anxiety are the two commonest disorder in the planet. 1 in 4 people actually has some form of depression or anxiety. Whether it is manageable or treatable or not is a different story. সুতরাং মন খারাপ করছে is not always depression, but it is pointed towards depression, especially if something is happening around you and you're not coping, and মন খারাপ করছেটা is continuing অনেকদিন ধরে চলছে, then it becomes a problem, and that needs to be really looked into through a mechanism of contacting doctors, and then go to specialists like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So মন খারাপ করছে is a very starting point of understanding that আমার মন খারাপটা কি করছে continuously, or is it a little bit transitional, and then you move on and something happens and the mood picks up and the mood picks up and you feel okay. If it is within a couple of days, I don't think the mon kharap is a big problem. But if it is not, then there is a looming darker shadow, a black dog somewhere.
so Shoibal, when you say mon kharap korche, like and all of us go through mon kharap korche for various reasons. If it continues for a month, do you think we should then seek help, or do you think it is yes, yes, okay,
I think mon kharap is only a component of mood. You're describing your mood. Depression actually has about 9 different types of symptoms, and at least 5 or 6 of them have to be fulfilled. Then you have to go to the severity. Is it mild, moderate, severe? How is it causing a dysfunction in your life? Like আমার মন খারাপ করছে, but I can go to work and I can enjoy a movie. I can go out with my husband or wife, or enjoy some time with my kids. That mon kharap is at a level of symptoms. But when it becomes a syndrome or disorder, then you need mon kharap, negative thoughts, pessimistic thoughts, lack of concentration, memory problems. Nothing gives you pleasure. Anything that gave you pleasure before is not giving you pleasure anymore. Sleep is becoming disturbed. Either you're sleeping more or sleeping less. Appetite is decreasing or increasing in some cases. Then comes energy and motivation. So if you put all of them together with the mon kharap, then it becomes a problem, and that problem definitely needs to be treated. The DSM-5 or ICD-10, these are the textbooks or Bibles in psychiatry that we talk about diagnosis. That says at least for 2 weeks, all for at least 6 out of 9 symptoms of depression needs to be fulfilled to be called a major depressive disorder. If that
and
answers
then
your question.
and then you go and seek help, because that's what
Absolutely.
we don't do. We don't ask for help.
Because of stigma, because of worry, because we tend to look after our family and our children more than we look after ourselves. That's the perennial problem Indians have. It's called lack of self-compassion. So that needs to be really addressed, because without you, nothing around you will work. Because if you're depressed, your children will soon see the depression and not work with you well, and their attachment will start to waver. And this is why children have problems, because without attachment, their safety, security, and all those things are not addressed. So if you're depressed and you're looking after the family while you're depressed, people around you will not be happy.
Yeah. Um, we've had this year has been tough for everyone all over the world. um,
Absolutely.
and it's only been in the last, I think, few about a month and a half that children in Melbourne have started going back to school. But in India, I know schools are still not open.
No,
And I think in the US, they are closing schools again. So, and children being cooped up in the house is not easy, because they
no.
can't meet their friends, they can't have sports. So, what can parents do? What can parents do to lift up their moods?
Oh, thank you. That's a very interesting and important question, and I hope I have answers to that. To be honest, this is inordinate times. It didn't actually prepare psychiatrists to actually think through what we should be saying and doing. So it's challenging for every individual. Believe you me, if I get cooked up in my house, I can be the world's best psychiatrist. I wouldn't have a clue what to do to make
Yeah.
myself feel better. So the problem is actually across every dimension of society. So in Kolkata, if people are cooped up and children can't go to school, and every school is through your some kind of a web or internet based, then that is a problem. Because say supposing you're ADHD people, if you give them a computer and some websites, they will not do the schoolwork. They will go somewhere else and explore something. So the web-based interventions are obviously sometimes not working for certain disorders that human beings have, especially attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder is one of them. People who have relatedness to computers. A lot of kids are not computer savvy always, especially
Yeah.
younger kids, primary school kids. So thrusting them in front of the computers and then sitting and breathing down their neck is an uncomfortable thing. A lot of people do well in the structure of a classroom. You take that away and make it a virtual classroom. It's not a solution. I think it is a problem in itself. So inordinate times, and the measures are have to be sort of matching up. But then again, there are multiple threats. A lot of people have lost their jobs. So if an unhappy father is there who's lost his job, then and the son is or the daughter is has to do web-based teaching, it's still the environment in the house is all rattled, all wobbly, and people have Monkarab issues in the house. The child will react negatively and will have a very negative understanding of school and the way school is being dished out, and the pressure of the parents, because parents are getting anxious that due to this internet based teaching, maybe the children are losing out. If your son or daughter is in year 11 or year 12, you might think, oh my God, it PG Pabena, the post graduation Pabena engineer or doctor, he or she can't become what we want him to become because everything is falling over. And what kind of benchmark and standards are required to be crossed, or the threshold to be crossed to become who you want to become. So anxiety is running absolutely right. My suggestions, coming down to a few suggestions I can make. Number one, be absolutely compassionate to your children. Just be walking the talk. Don't just talk the talk. Don't give them plenty of GAN. Plenty of GAN doesn't work in this kind of things. You have to just say, look, I understand this is complex. What can I do to help you? What can I do to engage with the internet? মানে কোথায় problem হচ্ছে? Can I help? Can I do something? And that walking the talk is number one point. Number 2 point is you have to understand, and we, the parents, have to understand what exactly is happening. So we have to communicate to the school and back the where is the problem? Is the kid specifically having problem with internet logins or internet based teaching? Or maybe sometimes you have to put some private tutors in. With COVID, it's impossible sometimes to get them
Yes.
outside and come into your house. So I understand that. So some modification to our expectations from our children has to be brought in, because we are not coping, children are not coping. Now thrusting anxiety at each other only causes disruption to attachment. Children need support, understanding that okay, this is a write-off year for a lot of people, a lot of industries, is write-off year. So if people have to sit back and relax and get over without having COVID or infections or other problems, let the families start getting back on their feet in 2021 when the vaccine comes, we will regroup and we will
Yes.
survive. Human beings have survived. You have evolved. We have never got destroyed by plague or COVID or influenza. They have come and gone. So my thinking is just be in the present moment, do what you maximum can do, and reasonably take your expectations down. That would be the strongest advice I will give to you.
Thank you. Um, Another thing, Shoibal, I have heard a lot in Melbourne during the lockdown times is children self-harming. And
Yep.
I have actually been really, really surprised. I mean, uh, I think, I mean, I've known children, I know children have gone through really tough times, but the fact that children are cutting themselves and self-harming has actually come as a shock. Does
Yep.
that happen often, or do we kind of, is this just because of these unprecedented times, or what is it?
I believe self-harming has two dimensions to it. One is obviously a personality formation dimension where your self-image is forming, self-construct is forming, and a lot of people are not coping. They're angry, they're upset, things are not happening. That creates something called internal pain or pain body inside your ego. The ego is not happy. An unhappy ego creates a lot of unhappiness inside that sometimes in a young child does not manifest outside. They don't know. They don't have the language yet formed to manifest and explain things. So then the frustration builds up, and then paining the body by cutting or harming, burning, whatever it is the only way they can manifest and drown their internal pain by creating an external diversion or distraction. So that's the genesis of worldwide self-cutting or self-harming behavior. Is uh, very big in Western countries, but in our kind of countries, Eastern countries, is under wraps in some form or fashion, because our parents are very much enmeshed and involved with our kids. So any cuts will be or obviously get picked up, so they suffer
Yes.
a little bit without self-harming. But apparently it is picking up. My niece lives with me in Brisbane, and we got him from Kolkata last year, and she was saying that two or three of her schoolmates in Kolkata used to minor cuts with
Oh
this
my
thing. So
God.
it's catching up. It's a matter of time. What happens in the West happens in the East, and the reverse possibly is not true. But that's where the problem is, that self-harming is a kind of a new faddism, new fashion. That if I'm not happy with my parents, I will cut to seek attention to my internal pain. So and there is a YouTube video. Surprisingly, there are a lot of videos and other things are there of telling people how to self-harming,
Oh my
eating
God. Really?
yes. A lot of my patients actually come and tell me, oh, look, there are
Whoa.
plenty of ways of self-harming without the world coming to know of it, where to cut, how
Mm.
to keep it safe, and not go to emergency departments and get stitched up. It's a completely art form, and it's escalating quite significantly. My suggestion to my audience is, please be aware, talk to your children. If they've self-harmed, don't look at the self-harm, don't make that prominent. Look at the cause behind the self-harm.
Yes.
Don't always look at what is the tip of the iceberg without acknowledging there is a bigger base there which is under the water level. So you have to really find out what is bothering your favorite son or daughter, and what can you do to address the core issue. And core issues are always attachment based or self-image based.
Wow. I did not know about this YouTube video. Wow. That's scary.
That is there. It's everything is like there are self-harming comes in eating disorders, like people self-regulate eating and to become skinny. That's a form of self-harm too. Or overdosing, over medicating themselves, or taking something that is harmful to them. Self-harming comes in 50 shades of gray, and you have to be really mindful of what is happening. It may not be just cutting is only one manifestation of self-harming behavior, which is the bigger
Bigger
group I'm
picture.
talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
Wow. Um, so again, I think lot we are still working from home, and I think I'm at an age where I I don't mind working from home because my girls are grown up and they don't live with me. But for many people, the stress in the household to keep everyone safe. What would you think should be the coping mechanisms with everybody inside the house and working from home?
Look, there are side effects of living in the home. Suddenly, from a office environment where you had collegial networking, where you had your own little desk, your little room, and a lot of people go to workplace because of the workplace dynamics. Work
Yes.
becomes part of the family, isn't it? Part of your ethos of who you are. It becomes your identity or part of it.
Also, Shoibal, none of us are used to living with our partners, husband, wives,
That's true.
children
That's
for
true.
24 hours. I mean, that can be really frustrating.
That's true. And even your loved ones can get onto your nerves
Oh,
because you are
yes.
24 into
Yes.
7. And that
Yes.
becomes another level of problem, isn't it? I've got a few patients who actually started coming up and saying, we have relationship problems. I said, right, 35 years
Yes.
of marriage, you've got relationship problems. He said, I can't tolerate my husband going around me and telling me what to do, because we were both in the offices and never knew
Yes.
that he has a difficult side to him. I said, right.
Yes.
The difficult side was not only snoring, it was something else also.
Yes, absolutely. So, this is now the new normal for as long as we don't have a vaccine. And that's, yeah, I have been tempted to kill my husband because we we try and we meet for lunch, we meet for dinner. In between, we
True.
don't. But it is very tough to,
It
be
is.
with someone 24/7. So how do you
Yeah.
cope?
Look, because one thing has happened, especially when people like us who have delinked from and from the family, the bigger family, which is possibly some of us have seen been in joint families and all in India. At least I know my uncles and aunts were always living with us, and during our school holidays, we used to go to Mamar Bari, which was a bigger thing, and then a lot
Yes,
of
yes,
people were there. So the buffers have gone. Now we are nuclear, right? So you, your husband or wife, and then two children. So
yes.
obviously, children are more into closed doors and internet, so they're not visible as much as we want them to, which is another worry for
Yeah.
another discussion. But then the husband is available, and sometimes you look at each other saying, "Okay, it's about 25 years of marriage. What the hell do we say to each other? Because everything that
Yes.
we say has been said at some stage or other." So that's one problem. Second is, then we look at us saying, "What do we do?" So it becomes a kind of an expectation, isn't it? It becomes an entitlement. Oh, bloody hell, we are married. We have to do something together. We have to say something nice. How many times can you say? And from East, we don't say to each other, "I love you, honey. I want to be with you," and all that kind of warm and fuzzy stuff. That's a very Western concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
And I
we,
think staying with someone 24 hours, you don't want to say that.
you don't want to say that, and you don't want to make everything manifested. It has to be an internal. So after a long period of living together in a relationship, individuation starts developing. We start developing our identity because we take the marriage for granted. It's like the big
Yes.
wardrobe that you have, which has been standing there for 20 years. You look at it, but you don't see it. So marriage becomes like that. So the husband, we all become furnitures in our life a little bit, and a good furniture. It's not a furniture that you want to throw and put it in Gumtree or something like that. It's a nice furniture that you want to keep, but you're not looking at it because you're looking at your career. You're looking at doing something new. You want some new challenges. A lot of people go and have little women's group, coffee clubs, coffee
Yes,
groups. So
I
people
do.
find
Yes.
other things to do where husband becomes or wife becomes part of the furniture. Come and say, look, I want to eat now, so what's for dinner? So the best conversation is, what's for dinner, what's for
What?
lunch?
Yeah.
Are we going to Woolworths together, or am I going to go at the groceries? Now you go. I have to do some cards and respond to some Facebook messages. So conversations become very limited, but there is love, there is respect, there is trust. There's not that people are doing funny things just because they are not connected. But the connection takes a new definition. And then you have COVID, that somehow the virus says, look, guys, now you have to really start acting like husband and wife and enjoy your relationship. And that is another dimension, because we never expected a virus to tell us that we have to be husband and wife again, suddenly rediscover each other. So that throws a little bit of a challenge, but a lot of people have found out that by togetherness, they started redefining what they were missing in life. When you become individuated, you only meet for lunch, dinner, and breakfast, and in between some major decisions, who's going to come for dinner. And a lot of people distract by inviting people on the weekends and spend hours trying to clean the house and shape up the house and then cook a lot of Bengali food and all this thing. And then once the thing is done, you quietly wash your dishes and go to bed, and next day is another day. So distractions become the new norm in relationships. Now that is also stopped because you can't really invite anybody at home
No,
because
you.
social
Yes.
distancing has come in, and the government is restricting who we can call. So your husband, you're looking at your husband saying, "What the hell do we do with this guy now? What do we say to each other?" But a new language has to form, Salaya, because we can't ignore the fact that our marriages, our relationships have been meaningful to us, have been important to us. We couldn't have done what we have done so far in our life without that aspect. So we have to rediscover not only ourselves through this isolation and being quarantined in our own home, but also people who we live with, which could be a dog or a cat or your backyard. I've suddenly found backyard. I found birds in my backyard, which for the last 3 years we have been in this house, I didn't even know existed, because I used to go home from home at 7:30 in the morning and come back at 6 o'clock. So everybody else was enjoying my house that I'm paying hefty mortgages. I was not. So suddenly all these things make me realize that I've got a backyard. I've got things in my house that I should enjoy. I can watch Netflix.
Yes.
Some kind of interesting things. So discovering that, and then we decided that we can go for walks that we were not doing at all
Yes.
together. And if you can be brave enough to link each other's arms with each other, that's even fantastic. So
Imagine
it's
doing
just
that in Kolkata.
look, people are doing it, not with social distancing, but
Yes.
what I'm saying is, I'm not explaining people to go for walks in some shopping complex, because an average Calcutta person or Kolkata person will go to show their romantic sides by taking their partners or spouses to a shopping center,
Or
or
Victoria Memorial, ভুলে যেও না.
I don't think any of my of your known audiences are going to Victoria Memorial to romanticize at this age. I think that's all gone. All that going around the bushes in Victoria Memorial is all
Yes.
gone. And we just go to shopping center saying, "Oh, let's go and shop," and you can see them quietly shopping, not talking to each other, not even turning to each other. Husband is looking at his phone, wife is trying to buy some saris or some dresses, and then they go to CCD, sit down, have a coffee, and must look at here and there and have a very bored expression. When I go to CCD in Kolkata, I look around saying, "My God, these people are married." I feel bad for them because there is not a conversation that happens. Husband and wife both are looking at their own phones. So there is a distance that is developed completely. And through this COVID, I believe my recommendations to couples who are possibly a bit estranged from each other and possibly sharing their accommodation and thinking they're married is to rediscover their marriage. Look, in a relationship, you got husband, you got wife, two individuals, and there is a third invisible individual called marriage. The institution of marriage has not been fed. It's like you got a beautiful Brazilian rose that you imported from Brazil. But hey, the Brazilian rose will give you flowers only if you water and put some fertilizer.
Absolutely.
When will you fertilize your own bloody marriage? And that
I've
COVID.
started looking at it like my morning cup of coffee. I need it. I may not feel the taste, but that is what marriage is. I mean, and I think this is what being together 24 hours. You need that perk in the morning, and it is like a morning cup of coffee. It's something that is there. You've been having it for years and years and years, but one day you don't have it. You suddenly realize how important it is. So
And problem is, a lot of people sit together, have a coffee, but there is no language.
no,
There is no emotional play going on. Their phone becomes a go-to
yes, their
point.
lives, yes,
You will be surprised. I go and see my brothers. They're talking to their wife about something important, not lovey-dovey things, but something important. And the phone rings. My brothers will straight go up, pick up the phone, midway conversation, as if that phone, the person who's calling, couldn't wait for another 3 minutes.
yep,
It's the abject disrespect
yeah,
that creeps into relationships, COVID or no COVID. And why people struggle is, now if you're continuously thrust into your room and you have to really recognize the other person, you can't do things that you could do if you're in office or somewhere. Pick up the phone, talk to someone, don't even care who's looking, because you're not in a relationship. Here you know that you I'm at a tick korchina. That kind of thoughts come
yes,
in, that I
yes.
might not be doing something right. But that guilt feelings are there, but they don't care. Some people don't have any phone aesthetics. The phone hygiene is poor, conversations are poor, there is no language that is coming up, and that has to come up. COVID has given us a unique opportunity to rediscover marriage. And if you are wasting that chance, we'll have to wait for another COVID at some stage to rediscover each other. Because without our marriage, who are we
Exactly. If we are married.
if you're
Um,
married?
yes. My daughters actually taught me to stay off phone 1 day a week, not look
Oh,
at social media, because that's what she does. And she
wonderful.
said it has given her a lot of peace and brought perspective into her life. আমার
Yeah.
26 বছরের মেয়ে has taught me, stay off your phone
Congratulations.
1 day a
Yeah.
week and just
Yeah.
figure out, there are other things that are more important than phone and social media. And I've
And
started doing that. Yes, I've started doing
that's
that.
a very, very, very important thing that you said. In our household, none of the kids or we are allowed to, when we have a family meeting, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or anywhere, phones are not going to be on the table.
Yes, yes,
So
even I
we
have
have
that.
disallowed phones completely because we have to make eye contact and say, hello, how are you? How was your
Yes,
day? Some norm has to come in.
yes,
Some you just can't be internet based. We can't be
yes,
gadget based. We are not robots. We are human beings with feelings, thoughts, emotions, ideas, empathy, love, respect, trust. These are not something that you can suddenly get out of social medias. How many likes did I get for a post? Oh,
and
you
that's
just
important for many people.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people post their husband-wife pictures of going
yes,
somewhere just for. So if you see them taking pictures or selfies of themselves, they are all close, hubby-dubby. The moment the picture is taken, there will be
yep,
20 meters distance developing
yes,
between them. You
I've
don't have
seen
to
that.
practice social distance; it's already there.
It's already there. Yes. So this, my father, I lost my mother about 4 years ago to Alzheimer's, and my father is 87. He lives by himself. Like you said, we all live in joint families, some way or the other. My father also lives in a joint family, but my kakas are also 70, late 60s, early 70s. Nobody's getting young. And like you and me, many of our listeners, they have parents living overseas. They live in India if they live overseas. And that's a constant anxiety, isn't it? This constant worry about what can we do? We are not with them. And I know we cannot travel. We cannot travel back to India for maybe a year, maybe more. What do we do in that case? The anxiety that creeps in, the guilt that we cannot do anything. I mean, if something happens to them tomorrow, none of us are in a position to just walk out and take a flight and go. And I'll give you an example. My in-laws contracted COVID, and my mother-in-law had a cancer surgery about 3 months ago. And my husband wanted to obviously be there. He wanted to go and be with his mother. But the Australian government did not say, no, you cannot go. They
Yeah.
said, yes, you can go, but you have to give us an undertaking that you won't return for 6 months at a minimum. And you can't give an undertaking like that. How can you not? So the guilt of not being there when his mother needed him the most, she's 80 plus, the guilt that now that they have COVID and he still can't go. Every day I talk to my father, it's like, আমার আজকে শরীরটা ভালো নেই, পাটা ফুলেছে, মাথাটা ঘুরছে. And I know, he's 87. The news can come any day. What do we do? What do we do for people like you and me and many of our members who live overseas and with parents living back in India?
Look, I recently had a similar experience. My father was on the wrong side of 90s, and on 31st July, he passed away.
So
And
sorry.
not due to COVID, but due to the COVID, the hospitals would not take him in, and he was suffering, and he kept his illness to himself because he thought we will drive him to a local hospital, and he didn't want to go because he was scared of COVID,
Yep.
and that cost him his life, unfortunately, because the delay, the infection did spread. And you know what? I wanted to take the flight straight to, and then same problems happened. And then my mother said, look, don't come, because that was the peak of COVID in Kolkata. So I couldn't go. So we had this all these shroud ceremonies and everything through the webinar, and my brothers did a good job with telecasting everywhere in the world that my relatives are. So we could live stream the whole thing, and we had a mini shroud ceremony in our house that was live streamed. So it worked out well. The guilt feeling still remains because when my father died, neither brothers were there, I couldn't be there, and because of this thing, they don't allow people to go in other than working all these PPEs and other things. So the dad who has done so much for us, we couldn't be there. So I've got guilt feelings, and I will possibly have to live with it for a long period of time. But coming down to what should we be doing? I think other than contacting our parents and doing FaceTiming and due to a more visual presence, nothing much can be done. I think people in India are also sometimes stuck because of the COVID things. If something happens to the parents, they taking a flight in from other parts of India. Sometimes you don't reach in time,
Yeah.
and
No.
it is difficult. As some coming from outside all the time to your home when your elderly parents are there, there's a risk that you will be bringing COVID to them. So how will you live with that guilt? Is another question, isn't it? So I don't believe we can sacrifice all our safety and security for guilt. Guilt is not a denominator that should force us into action based on that emotional negativeness or ego negativeness. We have to talk to ourselves, engage in self talks to say, look, this is the safety. If a government is saying this is unsafe, we have to we not get our emotions completely overrun our judgment. Without judgment and insight, we are, as human beings, who are we then? We just can't be a son to someone and then we have to do our son or daughter's responsibilities. We also have global responsibilities as a citizen of this world, and we have to do the right thing by the situation in itself. If there was a war going on, would he be thinking differently? This is a war. Pandemic is a war of sorts. So we just have to bunker down, do the right thing by us and our families here, because we have direct responsibility. Your father has been looked after there. It is. My mother claims all sorts of illnesses, and I'm the only doctor in the family. I can't even go. I just talk to her and engage my other doctor friends over there to try and help as much as possible. So talking every day is one very strong recommendations. Be present in their lives and say that, look, it is a helpless situation. I would love to come as soon as we get the vaccines. We will be coming. Give them hope that this is going to not be a permanent fixture. And the other problem is that we just can't jump into a plane and go to India and be there at their whims and fancies. It's impossible to do that. So we need to be pragmatic and also engage our family members out there, that we are listening to them, we are talking to them, and we are available. And availability is important, isn't it? That would be
Absolutely.
my
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah. I talk to my father every day, even if it's for like every day. You don't have much to talk about, even if it's for 2 minutes every day. For 2 minutes, I will talk to him. So
And that's a good thing. And I do to my mother also. We talk, and I just empathize with her, and she understands the COVID situation. She's watching the local news
yes,
channel, and sometimes she says, "No, I don't think you should come." So they understand, because we are. The moment we block and we don't do that, then all these kind of misconceptions and misperceptions develop. Is what I think.
yes. Um, I just told you that my in-laws have COVID. So when we were talking to my mother-in-law, she kept saying, "Kisi ko mat batana, kisi ko, don't tell anybody." And I wondered why. So I spoke to my brother, and he said to me that in Delhi, if you have COVID, so the health department is coming and putting a notice outside your door, saying, you have COVID, so people are shunning you. It's not something that you want to get, but if you get it, especially in India, it is like, but people are hiding it. It's become like this shame if you contract COVID.
Mhm. I think the stigma is not
It is terrible. The
appreciated.
stigma is really bad. Yes.
Yeah, and the same similar things happen in Australia, like you're quarantined in hotels and other things. People,
Yes.
everybody knows. Suddenly you contract COVID, and we didn't know that, and you went to 5 shopping complexes. You're undefined. You have the little bit of naming and shaming goes on here too,
Yep.
without publicizing. But people know who in the neighborhood had COVID and did not take precautions. Not as bad as India. I can understand that, but the government there is under absolutely big stress and strain. So I can empathize with the government bodies of how they're trying to make the community stay away from people who have got COVID. And Indians' self accountability sometimes is questionable, because Indians have this gung ho attitude that, okay, I'm infected, so what? I have to go and work, so I
Herd
don't care about
mentality. Yes. And
it.
herd
That is
immunity.
herd mentality. The political systems are not really supportive of that. People are talking all sorts of things. Even political parties in every state is not really following the federal government or the Indian government's messages. So there is a lot of miscommunication, misinformation. So my thinking in this matter is, try doing what is the right thing by your own moral conscience. So we all have conscience, and we know that it is not not a good illness until vaccine does come. And who is going to die? Like I've lost friends, I've lost senior psychiatrists in India. They all have died due to COVID and COVID related problems. So technically, it has the potential to damage. So best is to do the right thing. I don't know whether putting a stigma or a stamp on a house is the right thing to do. I wouldn't put a stigma. I would possibly talk to these people and say, look, please don't go out, and we will try and monitor that as much as possible. If we can't monitor, that's what they do. You just get stigmatized. And same as mental health, isn't it? Because you got stigmatized. Your children will not get married because, oh,
Of course.
মার একটা অসুখ হয়েছিল, মানসিক অসুখ, as if মানসিক অসুখ has been transmitted every like a viral infection. It's just the concept.
Um, Last one, which is very, very, I'm very passionate about it. And again, it may not directly affect any of our listeners, but domestic abuse, family abuse is obviously on the increase in Melbourne. I believe the police get a call every 6 minutes about domestic abuse in Melbourne. And I know people have suffered a lot.
Sure.
And we don't, again, like Mon Kharap and uh, ek, Manoshik Ashok, we don't talk, we don't talk domestic abuse at all. And again, maybe you and I and whoever's listening is not going through that, but if you know of someone who is going through that, I mean, I talk about it a lot in Melbourne on my podcast. And I have contact numbers for Melbourne, but I don't have contact numbers for, say for states, for England, for India. What does one do? What happens even if you are not going through family abuse and domestic abuse? If you know of someone going through that, how would you help? What are the signs? What could you, as a sister, brother, just a neighbor, good community person? And I'll give you an example, Shoibal. I interviewed somebody and in Sydney, and they did a movie on dowry abuse amongst Indians. Um, and one of the actors I interviewed, she said something that really shook me. She said her neighbor, she used to go and play with the neighbor's child, and they were about the same age. And she said she went that afternoon or evening to that to her friend's house, two brothers, and she didn't see the mother. And she said, where is auntie? And the boy said, don't worry, papa mummy ko maar raha hai. And I was actually shaken. He said, this happens every evening. And the boy actually normalized it. So our kids are growing up seeing this. How is it? This is so wrong in every which way.
That's
You
true.
know?
And lot of
Yes.
Bollywood movies and other things have
Yes.
depicted that kind of an abuse and how that is. I think that in Australia it is reportable, and
Yes.
kids do report. There are kids lines that they can report, so the awareness is important.
Higher. Yes.
And the consequences of dobbing somebody should be also dealt with. So the system has to be robust. If the system is not robust, the kids and the person who's been abused, they slowly accept that is the new norm. And unfortunately, that is not the new norm.
No, that's
Nobody
not
comes
the
to
norm.
this
Yes.
planet to be miserable or be abused. It's your birthright to feel safe and secure and loved. It's your privilege and your human rights. So I think we as a society, in whatever little format, whatever little we do, if we are becoming aware of something happening, we will have to say, stop, this is not normal, this is not okay, and we have to do something. The police will not sometimes take an FIR in India. I know that multiple cases have happened and people have got killed. Women have got killed because the domestic violence was not recorded. But again, it has to be from the politicians downwards to common society. I think in India, what really works well is the common janata, janta, and the common public. If they start saying that this is not okay, and if the education system through mechanisms of actors and actresses, if they start sharing forums and like you are doing through podcast and everything, continuously say what is okay, what is not okay, at some stage people's common ethos, their own psychological consciousness and insight will start developing, and that understanding developing that I can speak, somebody will listen to me. And okay, I can't speak to the abuser or the abuser's family or my kids because it's completely stigmatized, and I don't want to bring my kids into it. But there will be helplines that you can send an email, and that will be checked, and somebody will give you a call. And it's not difficult. It's not about the number of people that we have in India. It is who is going to help. And there are plenty of NGOs working, but they're not working in tandem. Nobody is really reaching out to the common masses and say, you can make a phone call, you can send an email, you can contact someone. If you can't do it, talk to your neighbor who will be able to do it, and there will be some consequences which will address that issue. I think the common address is, you have to raise the awareness. And if you are aware of something happening within your family network, or neighbors, or your kids come and saying, oh, I've watched this, we can't condone it. We have to do something, and that something has to be a helpline based. Somewhere anonymously you can say something, and somebody will knock on somebody's door saying, look, we got a reporting that something funny going on, and if we keep on getting these reports, we will investigate this, and you will have to answer for this.
So this is something I can never understand. You know, we all grew up with mothers. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our mothers. Some of us have sisters. I don't, but my brother has a sister. And, you know, we are so close to our mothers, to our sisters. We learn to respect them. We respect them. And yet, when it comes to our wives, our partners, it's like everything just changes. Why is it that men cannot stop this? Why cannot they be on this, you know, respect their wives or their girlfriends and their partners the same way that they respect their mothers and their sisters?
The question is, a lot of these men have not developed in households where respect was given. They have grown in a household which is very paternalistic, driven by their fathers or their forefathers or grandfather. They have seen this happening, especially in villages, in a lot of clans. This disrespect of women is the norm. Change is happening now, but it was not happening 20, 50, 30 years back. Women were being abused, police would not file a complaint, police will not take a complaint. And women were depicted in a different light in some public forum and everything. So basically, we need to. It's not like Indira Gandhi became prime minister and every woman has been liberated in India. I'm sorry,
No.
that didn't happen. Still not happened yet. So his question
And it's
is,
still not happening yet.
so women have to raise up, not fear about their life, or their enmeshment with their children. If wrong is happening to the mother, and the mother is worried about raising the boys because the kids might get affected and the father might do something more nasty, or leave them or go away. So a lot of economic pressure, a lot of pressures on safety and security, on logistics, bars women from speaking up. Ultimately, change never happens automatically. Change doesn't happen because it drops from a tree. It happens because somebody like you, like me, speak out and stand up tall, will show some spine into this whole thing. And if that doesn't happen from the victim, the society speaking about the victim, but the victim is not doing anything. It's like mental health. I can't treat somebody's depression if the person doesn't want to get better.
Yes, that's true.
Same paradigm applies here.
On this note, we hope it brings somebody is affected, and I hope we've been able to pass on the right message, Saibal. Thank you so much for joining. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good day and stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.